but it can seem a little intimidating for beginners. And I know that because the messages I get on YouTube, I can tell you from absolute experience and from what people are saying that the all grain process, although it's fun and it's interesting, you can make way better beer than what you would buy in any beer store, any store. Mm-hmm. It can seem a little intimidating at first to a beginner, and that's why there are other ways of making beer. And that's sort of where I came from with my YouTube channel, trying to show people that, you know what, you can make beer in your home, in your kitchen, without having to go through all of those procedures. Now, let's be fair. All grain brewing is an art. It's a science. It's a beloved hobby by many, and it's very protected. Yeah, well, I don't know how. It can get technical. It can be very simple as well. It depends on how deep you want to get into it. There is some equipment required. Additional equipment. You need to be boiling 6.5 to 7 gallons of wort. So you need a huge pot in most cases. Mm-hmm. You can do it with 2 pots, smaller pots, but for the most part, you need a large pot. And you need a large heat source, which is usually a propane burner. And so there are some things you might need to get. And if you live in a northern climate, you might, because you can't use propane burner inside in the house, you blow yourself up. So there are some situations where it might be a little inconvenient and possibly a little intimidating for a beginner.
Now, isn't this why?
Homebrew.
That's a good comment. Isn't this why you created a series of videos when you started out called Easy Home Brewing? And I believe they've gotten like just a ridiculous amount of hits. And a lot of people have watched that series, Easy Home Brewing, and you can find that on CraigTube, his YouTube channel. And that's what sort of started the whole ball rolling for you. Not that you weren't interested in it before, but as far as an educational thing on the internet.
Well, you know, when I opened my YouTube channel in 2006, I had no idea what I was going to do with it. I was just looking for a way to post video online. And at the time, you either had to buy hard drive space off of some, provider, or you had to be limited. And when YouTube came around, I was like, wow, this is cool. I can actually post home videos or whatever. I've been shooting videos since I was 18 years old. So I have a huge archive of family home videos. I've been a videographer for many years, and it's been one of my main passions is video editing and shooting.
So YouTube was just a natural evolution for you.
Yeah, it's actually, strangely enough, one of the things I haven't really talked about much on my channel, but is video and video editing, but that will change. And I just said, what can I do on this channel? I created this channel called, and at the time, there was not a lot of people on YouTube, and you could get your name, my name's Craig, C-R-A-I-G, and then I thought, well, it's YouTube, so who's me? Who's you? Well, that's Craig, so it's CraigTube. You can't get that anymore now. Any name you can think of, you can't get your name tube anymore. It's quite hard to do, but I was lucky to be able to do it. So, and when I posted my first home brewing series, that's because I was standing out front my house with the neighbor, and I was drinking a home brew, and I was giving him some home brew, and he was like digging it, He's like, wow, how do you do that? How do you make this stuff? Because beer, people think of beer as just some mystical thing that you just, you can't make this stuff in your house. What do you mean, And I said, well, you do this, you take that. And I showed him the easy way to do it, which we'll get into in a little bit.
Yeah, we have a break coming up in about 2 minutes. So
okay, yep, I can quickly finish up with that. And so I told him, I said, look, I'll tell you what I'll do. I've just opened a YouTube channel. Told him how to get to it on the internet. I said, I'll make a video series on how I make my beer, and you can watch that. And then you can go, and he watched it, and he actually went and got the equipment, and now he makes his own beer. So that's how it happened. And then slowly people started demanding more videos about brewing. I did different things like drumming and did some other stuff, cooking, and people were like, "Hello, Craig, where's the brewing videos?" So I just carried on with some more experimentation, and yeah, we still do it. Home brewing is fun.
Scott Jordan here, my co-host Tom Theophanis, and we're talking to Craig Farraway, who has a popular YouTube channel called CraigTube, where he does instructional videos on making beer and assorted other things. You were telling us about beer.
Well,
and what a fascinating subject it is, too.
Well, beer is great. People generally love beer. When I created the channel on YouTube, I did not intend on it becoming a beer channel. As a matter of fact, I do want to point out that I'm not the cream of the I'm not the beer god. Let's just say.
You're not beer guru?
No, I'm not the guru. I hate to say it. People, I help a lot of people every day, but I'm really, I have a lot to learn. I approach beer making from an easy homebrewing standpoint, although I have made a hobby of it as of late and have been getting into working with the raw ingredients that we described earlier. But mainly, there's a lot of guys and gals out there that really have great setups, lots of equipment, technique. They've been doing it for a long time. They know which hops to use and which grains to use. There are different types of grains, by the way. Some of them are roasted so that they have different flavors and color, which give beer the different, characteristics. And although, I know I've been making beer for many, many years, so I know a lot of the technical things that can go wrong, like why is my, how come it's not bubbling, or how come, it's what temperature, and, but when it really gets down to the, the real nitty gritty, there are really, really talented guys out there that make absolutely incredible beer, and I've tasted it.
And they send them to you.
I have had people, yes. I'm a little leery about being sent home brew because, gosh, you never know. Somebody, but, hey, I don't think anyone's going to. Somebody did send me an all-grain beer from the UK, and man, I was shocked. I mean, it was it was an all-grain beer that he showed the recipe, showed how he made it, and it was so good. You have to understand that the industries that have taken over beer, just like everything else. I mean, listen, when you bought a Monopoly, game when you were a kid, the little things were all metal and they were all high quality. Nowadays, they're all plastic and crappy, So it's the same with beer. I have to tell you that most people think that when you go to the store and you buy, I'm not going to name brands, but I know this is an online radio, but just, your standard store-bought beer, most people think that that's what beer is. And it really is far, far from what people used to do when they made their own beer in their homes. And as far as making your own beer in your home now, even if you do it, quote unquote, the easy way, you can make much better beer than some of the stuff that you buy in the store.
Could you define? I'm sorry, Tom. I just had a thought pop into my head. Can you define easy way?
Well, okay, yeah, sure. There's different ways now of making beer. There are companies that have come along that have done some of the dirty work for you. In other words, they have taken the grains and they have, soaked them in water. That's called mashing them, by the way. You mash the grains in hot water to convert the starches into sugar, created the wort. They've done that for you. And some companies have even added the hops and everything and done the boil and done all that work for you. Basically, the most time-consuming part of the whole beer brewing process has been done for you. Now, there's a few companies. I mean, for example, I've been using Cooper's kits for a long, long time. Many, many years, even before the internet was around. And I know there's a couple people out there. Some people might think that I work for Cooper's. I do not. I use the product. I get good results. And, my experience, and there's other companies out there that make Muntins, for example, makes beer kits. I'm probably forgetting a lot of names because we don't have a lot available up here where I live, but the Cooper's kits are the ones that I've been using, and they come in a can. And so basically what Cooper's has done is they've taken the grains, steeped them, boiled them with the hops, and then what they do is they centrifuge them, which means they spin them, and they spin something like what your washing machine does to spin the clothes. Takes most of the water out of the wort, and what you end up with is a very thick syrup. And they put that in a container, and they ship it. And now all you have to do is take that and rehydrate it. You don't even have to boil some of these kits. You just put the water back in, add your yeast, and ferment it off to beer. Now, somebody might say, why would you want to do the all grain method when you can just make it out of a can? And that brings up a whole talk about why people make their own beer. There's different reasons. Now, down in the U.S., their beer's cheap. They can go and buy their Coors Light and their Busch and their whatever they buy, Budweiser, and it's, literally very, very cheap. I'm going to give you an example. Where I live in Canada, the price of beer is for 24 12-ounce bottles of beer. Okay, so a 24 case of beer.
Or a 2-4.
Or a 2-4. They don't call it down in the States there. They go, what's a 2-4? They don't know. So 24 bottles of beer is $28.50, and that's the cheapest swill you can buy. And it goes up from there. So it's not like that in the U.S., and it's not like that in some other. So somebody in the States who says, well, I want to make my own beer, they're not doing it because they are worried about the price. They're doing it because it's like fixing cars. They want to have all the tools, all the wrenches, and all the stuff to be able to do their hobby. It's a hobby. And at the end of the day, they're proud of what they've done. Okay? Mm-hmm. Now, in where I live, when I started making beer 20-something years ago, I wasn't thinking of it as a hobby. It was like, well, I'm willing to give up some of my time in order to save some money, because I ain't buying that expensive beer that we get, which doesn't even taste very good.
Right.
And so there's two different approaches to why people make beer. And I think that's where a lot of the controversy has happened, in the forums and online. Well, why would you want to, and in the U.S., the grains and the hops that you need to make the beer are so readily available and so cheap that for some people down there, it's like, why go buy a can and have to add things to it to make it taste better?
Right.
That's going to cost me twice as much as if I just go get the grains and do it from scratch.
Yeah, probably just a bike right away.
Let's not go there. That's an inside joke. Well, that brings up a point, and that is that in some parts of the world, including around where I live, it's not easy to get, even if you do go to that place that's supposedly a bike ride away, it's not really, but even if you do go to a place that sells some of that stuff, they have a very limited supply, and it's expensive.
Yeah.
It's not cheap like it is down in the States. So, for somebody who might say, well, yeah, this guy, I've had people criticize me and say, well, you've been brewing these kits for so many years, how come you haven't moved up to all grain? Well, it's only a few years ago we even had access to the grains and the hops. Right. And even then, it's expensive. And so.
But you are getting into that, and you are getting into, I think I've seen on your site, you're getting into some kegging as well.
Kegging's great. I mean, anyone who's made home brew and has bottled their own beer knows that bottling is a drag.
Yeah.
So kegging it sounds scary, but if you can find a keg with the proper, the regulator and the CO2 tank, it makes a world of difference in the, when it comes time to put your beer somewhere where you can drink it, Putting it in a keg is much easier than putting it in bottles where you have to clean them all and sanitize.